Okay. Well, if you came in late, you might not have seen the uh, screensaver, but it's it's something I made up for myself around here at the Hollow. It's just another. Uh, it's a poem that's attached to a bozo a bozo thing here. I'm going to put it up here for a minute so we can take a look at it. And so the guys doing this tape later will be able to see it. A lot of fun with this one. Uh, Poems are interesting for me. They're like a way of breathing. I just write every day, and that's why thanks to Debbie Mahoney doing the teaching a few Sundays back, we've added the wrinkle of being able to go from sitting meditation to writing meditation, and that's open to all of you. But I usually sit and then I write, and things come onto the page from who knows where. A lot of it's grace, and then somehow when I read it back, something just I tried to distill it into I'm doing it for myself into some kind of wisdom that hopefully came to me, and I don't want to forget it. It's why my poems tend to be rather small, is because it might be this poem came out of probably 4 pages of writing and just cut out everything that isn't true or doesn't have energy to it, of just doesn't feel right. And actually, this poem started as a poem to Pam on our anniversary, and then it just kept moving around on the page. So I just kept following it. And today I want to talk about, if I were going to have a title for it, it would be Essential Soul Vocabulary. We've been working on this for a while. And this sort of is a kind of teaching poem. First of all, trying to teach myself, but we'll be able to look at 10 words that are essential soul vocabulary in this one poem. So I just read it into the record here, and then we'll just sort of work our way through it. Soul aspirations. True love. Being a wellspring of open-hearted awareness, untainted by even a hint of wanting. And this is a kind of two-part poem. And then fail better. Oh, beloved one, even though I fail and fail again to love with your amazing grace, may I fail better. Yeah. There's a lot of guidance in this poem for me, and maybe we'll be able to tease out some that you can resonate with. So, okay. 10 vocabulary words here. First one is soul. We're talking about soul aspirations. Well, soul, just you can't really define any of these other than every one of the 10 words I'm going to give you is a verb. Every one of them, the soul's a verb, so you can't like put it in a box. You can't. It's like if you take a box in a windy day and you catch the wind and put the cover on the box, you don't got wind. I don't know what you have, but you don't have wind. You might have delusion. Same way with if you scoop up a dipper full of the river, you don't have the river. You see, so everything is a verb from a Buddhist standpoint and from a physics standpoint. And so soul is first of all a verb. And one way of saying it, it's a force that moves in you to evolve and flourish. It's a force that moves through everything, that wants whatever it is to evolve and flourish. That's just the essence of the soul. And there's other ways of talking about soul, but I think that's really a good one. It's a force, and it's in you, and it's in every dust bunny, every particle, planets, suns, rivers. It's in it, and there's some force that wants it to flourish and evolve. Okay, so that's, I think, good enough to get us going for the soul. It's immaterial. You could say it's eternal. It's not in time and space. These things would always be true. You could say it's when an actual meeting happens. You could say it's when the human heart and the divine heart meet, which is exactly what the Hindu people mean when they put their hands together like this in front of their heart. They say namaste, namaste. The God in me meets the God in you. That's a soulful gesture. Soul is always about meeting, which is where applause comes from. You see somebody sing a great song or do a great dramatic act on the stage, and we do this. Well, that just there's a meeting here. Only at the State of the Union thing do people applaud whether they like it or not. But normally when you're at an event or you see a performance, you applaud, and then some people even stand up and applaud when they really resonated. The heart of the person on stage or whatever has really resonated with your heart. So soul is like that. It's the meeting of a divine heart and human heart. All of that has to do with soul. Now, soul aspirations. I'm going to give you just one stanza from a great poem. If you don't know this poem, jot it down. Hopefully you have paper and pen so you can write at any time when something comes to you. You can just jot it down. But this poem is called A Ritual to be Read to Each Other. A ritual to read to each other, I think it is. There's no B in there. A ritual to read to each other. It's by William Stafford, one of my great lights of poetry. I'll just give you the first stanza of it. It'll start to give you an idea of aspiration. He said, I used to introduce my first day of school to my seventh graders who were coming into my classroom for the first time. Only man teaching at the school, all other women, and I was this weird guy. Shaved his head one year, and they heard rock music coming out of my room, and etc. So they walk in, they sit down. I don't say a word. I sit down, I ring the bell. I'm sitting on my cushion because I had a cushion, a little platform, and the first words I say to the students is, if you don't know who I am, and I don't know who you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in this world. In following the wrong God home, we may both miss our star. And then I just was one of the most enjoyable parts of the year. I would open my eyes and see the looks of terror on these students. Like, it's just a whole year? They're going to be all incomprehensible or what? But that's really about aspiration. If you don't know the person it's also about communication. It's also about the Enneagram, if you like. If you don't know who I am and I don't know who you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in this world. We're all working with that pattern. We all had a kid life crisis. You may have had a midlife crisis. Those are great too, but we all had a kid life crisis where a pattern that we should follow got laid down, you see. So if you don't know who I am and I don't know who you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in this world, and following the wrong God home, we may both miss our star. Okay, so that gives you an idea of aspiration. Aspiration's a verb, of course. All these words are verbs. And it's a kind of star that your soul follows, but never reaches. Think the runaway slaves and had no maps, but they just had enough. They were going for freedom, and so they ran away, and they had no maps. They didn't even know where the North was, but they knew where the North Star was. Of course, so they navigated by it. That's why they mostly moved at night, because that was their map, the star. So they moved at night. Plus, it was stealthier. But that's a good image of an aspiration. See, the soul follows a star. The old teaching was there's a star up before Netflix, before electricity. People looked at the night sky. They made up stories to navigate by these constellations, they called them. But the North Star did move. And so no matter where you were in whatever hemisphere, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about being in the North Hemisphere if you could see the North Star, but I think you could. But anyway, people in this country, the slaves could find it. And so they're never going to reach the North Star, but you can orient by it. It gives you direction. And the soul is interested in direction, you see. When you feel lost in this life, I have a section in the journal I taught for many years. It's called Lighthouses. Same kind of image. When you're out lost at sea and you can't see anything, fog, storms, but you might be able to see the lighthouse, which shows you where the harbor is. So aspirations are of the soul. Expectations are of the ego. They're like goals, and you expect to reach them. That's fine, but the soul is not interested in that, you see. Soul is interested in a bigger game, you see. And if you apply expectations to your own life, life again is a verb, you're going to be disappointed because things aren't going to turn out the way you expected. But if you aspire, if you have a star to follow, yeah, it'll keep you from following the wrong God home, as many people have. You know, all of a sudden you're a mugshot. People follow the wrong star, you see. Okay, so that's aspiration. So those are first two words, soul and aspiration. Then when you go into the poem, true love. True love. That's what everybody's looking for. So hard to find. We ruined the word love like we've ruined most words in our culture because we make them commodities. We're a consumer culture. You know, Subaru means love. No, it doesn't. I love Subarus. There it is. Say, I mean, I just have a great affection for them, but that's not, that's not what we're talking about here. It's not a commodity. True love is a verb too. And the Greeks had, I think, 9 different words for love. There's the love you have for your mother and father. There's a love you have for brothers and sisters. There's the love you have for your friends. These are all different words. The Greeks felt about love like Eskimos felt about snow. It was important. Eskimos have 52 different words for snow. We just have snow here, but it makes a difference. It could be, you could lose your life if you go out in the wrong kind of snow. And so I think we should have 52 different words for love, but we don't. We just have this one word. The Greeks called it Agape. And actually, there's only 2 times in the Bible, in both, never it happens in the Hebrew part of the Bible, but in a couple of passages of epistles by John, letters by John, it's the only 2 times in the whole Bible that they say what God is. Everything else is metaphor, but John says it twice. God is love. And the word that he used was the Greek word, because most of the early testaments were written in Greek, not Aramaic or Hebrew. The Christian texts are written in Greek. God is love, and that word that John used was agape. That's what Jesus meant when he talked about, love one another as I would love you. Okay, so true love, agape. Coltrane called it the love supreme. Dante called it the force that moves the sun and all the other stars. I captured that image when I say, be still and trust the love that moves the stars. I'm not talking about eros here. Eros is when, this physical attraction, this instinctive attraction. Maybe you fall in love. They're not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. Trust this force, the biggest force in the universe. And Jesus called it the way. Something you walk, something you follow, see. So true love is, you could say, true love is the big kahuna. It's the way you go. It's what life's about. We sort of talk about it. We have lots of songs about it, but it's a different kind of thing. It's a different kind of thing. First of all, the first word in the poem is it's being. It's a state of being. And again, it's not something you get or could lose. It's in your very being. It's there at the core of your very being, you see. So first of all, it's being. Being is also a verb, by the way. And then the image of being a wellspring. Think of a wellspring. Comes up from down below, and it just, it's, you think of a spring and you do think of a verb, but it just bubbles up from below. And when you actually, we would put a real well around it with bricks and all that stuff in the bucket and all that. Uh, but really, it's something that's coming up from the ground of being, you see, and it's in everybody. You don't have to look for it. It's in everybody. It's in you and me. And that's a nature of soul. It's an internal thing that's always available. The interesting thing about wells, then we'd brick them up and we'd do all this stuff to make them more, I don't know, more usable by the public. If you don't draw from the well, what happens? Dries up. Dries up. So there's drawing from the well. I mean, you're not going to run out of love by giving it away. As a matter of fact, it brings it on. You see, it brings it on. You don't have to be stingy about this kind of love. This is love, the way God would love us. The only reasonable way, true love is the way that whatever this sacred mystery is that people call God or Yahweh or Allah or the Tao, whatever you want to call it, it loves us this way. At least I think so, anyway. Yeah. So it's in your very being. It's like a wellspring, and then it's a wellspring of open-hearted awareness. Now that's developing the image. It's a wellspring of open-hearted awareness. The heart has to be open, and awareness is infinite. Thinking is like this closed loop. It's helpful, for matters of time and space, but dealing with matters of eternity and infinity and life and death and love, awareness is the ticket. The Buddhists know that. That's what they're talking about. It is not thinking. When the Buddhists talk about mind, they're not talking about just the analytical thinking mind, which is plenty powerful. That's included, but they're talking about mind, heart, body, all three centers of intelligence. If you study the Enneagram, when you put all those together, and if you're open to all of them, that's awareness. And then there's no edge to it. You can shut your eyes. The big mind guy, I was working with a Zen master who talked about the big mind. He said, try to see the edge of your awareness. Can't find it. See, so it's being a wellspring of open-hearted awareness, okay, untainted, no taint. This is nothing getting in the way of it. We use this to talk about that. We use the jar of water just to show you. I shook it up yesterday, so it's still a little cloudy, but you can sort of see in it and see through it. But then there's, things stir it up. You can't see it. Light can't get in or out. That happens to people. But with this kind of love we're talking about, this aspirational love, untainted by even a hint of wanting. Now this is something here when you really talk about a love that is untainted by any hint of wanting. Now we're talking about agape. That's a stretch. Because if there's even a little hint of wanting in your love that you're extending, if you want anything back, it's a transaction. And what would it be like to just love somebody without even a hint of wanting? That's the gold standard. That's the North Star of love. Yeah. That's something to just it's even sort of hard to imagine loving that way. But that's what Coltrane called the love supreme. He said, gee, that's how God loves us all. That's how we're loved by this universe. Despite what all the crap that happened to you, there's that love. That's the love I'm talking about when I say trust the love. as we go down in meditation. Trust the love. And we'll talk about that when we actually sink into meditation a little bit. Now that's a lot, but that's like putting down a marker or actually putting a star in the sky that you could orient by. You're not going to reach it, but give you some direction. If it's not transactional love, well, what is it? Transformational love. If you want something, you love somebody because you want something, which we all do all the time. It's a bit, it's like Walmart. You go to Walmart, they give them $5 and they give you a little piece of candy or whatever they give you nowadays. But I mean, it's transactional. You see, not bad. We have to do all kinds of time and space transactions all the time. You got to get the roof over your head. You need food. So that's okay, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about true love. When we're talking about agape, when we're talking about actually how this whole thing, what it sends to us all the time. And even though it doesn't feel like it, well, hang with that for a minute. And now when you go to the second one, fail better. I stole that from Pema, and she stole that from Samuel Beckett, the Irish writer, sort of kind of a dark guy. He's a guy who was waiting for Godot all the time, Well, Beckett, and she stole it, and she put it in a book. Fail again, fail better. Oh. So, I'm saying, even though I fail and fail again to love, with your amazing grace, may I fail better. That's a kind of prayer I say to myself every day. And in bed, I lay in bed at night and I look, Dalai Lama taught me this. And I just spend some time as I'm falling asleep looking at the day and where did I fail to love this way? And sometimes I see where I actually, luck would have it, grace would have it, I did love somebody without wanting anything back. And so you sort of can examine the day every day. It's a great way to go to sleep. Sometimes it's a bit disturbing, but you have that part. Well, that's your, I call it my bedtime prayer. Help me feel better tomorrow. Now, grace, with your amazing grace, may I feel better. A guy once asked me after a Thursday night meeting. He stayed after. He was a young guy, really a great guy, but he didn't have any spiritual upbringing whatsoever, and he was trying to understand what I was talking about. And he said, I thought he had problems with his girlfriend or something, but he said, you've been talking about grace. I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you tell me about it? And I said, I can't remember what I did say. Hopefully it was something worthwhile, but what I would say now, it's when true love penetrates our ego's deflector shield. Those are moments of grace. No matter how defended we are against the world, which is including defended against the love of the universe, somehow the love of the universe, it gets through that deflector shield. If you're a Star Wars guys, they put up their deflector shield, Well, we all have them. That's our armor that we made during our kid life crisis. And so but every once in a while, the love of the universe gets through that. That's what I call grace. I also call grace the pattern that connects everything to everything. All of it's a verb. You can't define it really, but we're they're like fingers pointing to the moon when you try to talk about this stuff. But just when the love of the universe, the true love of the universe, somehow gets through the chinks in your armor, despite your best self, it comes through and it'll save a marriage. It'll save a marriage twice. I'm living, Pam and I are living proof of that. And some of you know what I'm talking about. And then finally, failure. Failure's word number 10. It's a verb. And I would say this: a soul would rather have you fail at a great enterprise than succeed at one that was too small for you. And as a matter of fact, I think that the soul can actually be like a gremlin or a saboteur when you're cruising along and all your ducks in a row and everybody thinks you're great. It'll actually sabotage that because it's a kind of success that's too small for you. And people will tell you, well, we grow most by our failures, and I think it's true if you could admit them. But if you blame the world for them, or you refuse to admit that you lost the election, you're gonna, you know, that's a kind of soul crippling kind of thing, But that's a failure is key. Failure is key. I was playing some of the music I was playing was the blues, the brilliance of the blues, jazz, Coltrane. That all come from the failure to treat human beings as human beings. We made slaves out of human beings, and that music, uh, out of this painful situation, out of this failure of humanity, which we still all over the world, where human beings are treated like dirt or animals. Uh, Human beings and the soul. That's why we call sometimes black music soul music, because you cannot kill the soul. You can keep it stopped up for a while. You can keep it in a prison for a while, but uh, it's going to find a way out. You're going to make it. Everybody's going to make it uh, to their true self, become what we're meant to become. How many lifetimes it takes? The Tibetans say that's the only thing, because the soul is more powerful than the ego. The ego's not bad. It's just limited. Time and space, large fries or small. Okay. All right. Well, so those 10 words I think are helpful to just because unless you have a word for it and understand what the word means, um, it's almost like you can't see it. So hopefully that's some help. All right. Well, we'll try to put it into practice now, but that's enough for the teaching, I think.